I raised a child that wasn't biologically mine. Then the truth came out. I need to tell you something that I have never said in full to another living person. Not my mother, not my therapist, not my sister, who I tell almost everything to. I have said pieces of it, edges of it, carefully selected parts, but never the whole shape of it, because the whole shape of it is something I have been both protecting people from and protecting myself from for reasons that will make sense by the time I finish writing this. My son is 11 years old. His name is Caleb. He is currently in the other room attempting to teach himself guitar from YouTube videos, which means I am writing this to the sound of the same 4 chords being played incorrectly, and then corrected, and then played incorrectly again. And somehow that sound is the most comforting thing I know. He is funny and stubborn and argumentative in the specific way of boys who read a lot and think they know more than the adults around them. He is the person I love most on this earth, without qualification, without condition, without a single asterisk. He is not biologically mine, and I raised him for 9 years before I found out. And the way I found out and what happened afterward is what I need to finally put somewhere outside of myself before it finishes hollowing me out. My name is Marcus. I'm 42 years old, and this is the most honest thing I have ever written. I met my wife, Dara, when I was 26 and she was 24. We were at a house party thrown by a mutual friend, one of those parties where you don't know the majority of the people there and end up gravitating toward the corners of rooms. Dara was standing in the kitchen doorway holding a red cup she wasn't drinking from, looking at the party with the expression of someone who had arrived and immediately begun calculating how long she had to stay before it was acceptable to leave. I recognized the expression because I was wearing the same one. I introduced myself. She said, "How long do you think we have to be here?" And I said, "Honestly, I think I have 20 minutes in me." And she said, "Perfect, I have about 18. And we ended up staying until 1 in the morning talking on the back porch while the party died around us. She was a nurse, just finishing her 2nd year in a pediatric ward at a hospital across town. She was sharp and she was funny, and she was the kind of honest that initially reads as bluntness until you spend enough time around it to understand that it's actually just the absence of performance. She didn't soften things unnecessarily. She didn't tell you what you wanted to hear, when the truth was more useful. I had come from a long relationship with someone who was the opposite of that, pleasant and agreeable in a way that turned out to be mostly conflict avoidance. And Dara was clarifying in the way that cold water is clarifying. She woke me up. We dated for 2 years. I proposed at home, no restaurant, no production. I cooked dinner, which I was never particularly good at but had spent 3 weeks practicing for, and after we'd eaten I said I wanted to ask her something, and she looked at me across the table and said, before I'd finished the sentence, "Yes." I hadn't even gotten the ring out yet. She said she'd known what I was going to ask for about a month and had been waiting for me to get around to it. That was Dara. We got married on a Saturday in April, a medium-sized wedding, about 90 guests, her family and mine. A venue that was a converted barn about an hour outside the city. My best man, Derek, gave a toast that was genuinely funny and only slightly embarrassing. Her sister Maya cried through the vows, the ceremony, and most of dinner. We danced poorly to a song we'd argued about for a week. I remember standing in the middle of that dance floor thinking that this was the clearest decision I had ever made. For the first 3 years, we were happy in the way that is both remarkable and ordinary, the particular happiness of 2 people who are genuinely compatible and know it, who don't have to work hard to enjoy each other, who fight about things like whose turn it is to schedule the car's oil change rather than about fundamental incompatibilities. We traveled when we could. We built routines that felt like home rather than like obligation. We talked about having kids in the comfortable, future-oriented way of people who want them but aren't in a hurry. Then Dara got pregnant. I want to describe how that felt because it's important to understanding everything that comes later. I was 31. She was 29. We had been married 3 years and we had been cautious about pregnancy in the casual, not entirely serious way of people who were open to it but not actively trying. When she came home one evening and stood in the hallway with that particular stillness she had when she was processing something significant and told me she was pregnant, something in me that I hadn't known was waiting went quiet in a very good way. I remember exactly where I was standing. I remember the exact quality of the light in the hallway. I remember going to her and holding her face in my hands and saying, "Okay, let's do this." She was already about 8 weeks along when she told me. She'd taken the test, then another test, then sat with it for 10 days before she said anything. When I asked her why she waited, she said she needed to be sure before she made it real for both of us. That was so entirely Dara, processing privately, completely, before bringing someone else into it. The pregnancy was uncomplicated. She worked until 36 weeks because Dara did not stop doing things until she physically had to. She was tired in the early months and specific about food in a way that was occasionally challenging to navigate, but she was fundamentally herself throughout. Focused, practical, making lists of things that needed to happen before the baby arrived and systematically completing them. We set up the nursery together over a weekend. I painted it twice because she decided after the first coat that the green was wrong. She was correct. The second color was better. Caleb was born on a Thursday in September at 4:47 in the morning, after a labor that lasted 14 hours and required more calm from me than I knew I had. I held him first before he was fully cleaned off because Dara was exhausted, and the nurse put him in my arms, and I looked down at the small, scrunched, red-faced person who was making a sound somewhere between a cry and a complaint, and I fell in love with him in the specific, immediate, involuntary way that apparently just happens. It was not gradual. It was not earned. It was immediate, and it was absolute, and it never wavered. I want to be very clear about this, because the rest of the story is going to test that statement, and I need you to know that it is true. I loved Caleb completely, and without reservation from the moment I held him. Whatever came later did not change that. It never will. We were good parents, I think. We were tired in the way all new parents are tired, occasionally overwhelmed in the way all new parents are overwhelmed, occasionally sharp with each other in the way that sleep deprivation makes people sharp. But we were in it together. Dara was extraordinary with him, efficient and warm in the way she was with her patients, unafraid of the hard nights, unwilling to be defeated by the logistics of a small person's enormous needs. I did the night shifts she couldn't, covered the mornings she needed to sleep, learned how to swaddle and how to read his specific cries, and how to get him to sleep in the particular way that worked for Caleb, which was different from the way the book said it should work. Life reorganized itself around him, and we reorganized with it. It wasn't always graceful, but it was always ours. The first several years passed the way early parenthood passes, in enormous detail and in a blur simultaneously. Caleb walked at 13 months. He talked early in full sentences by 2.5, and had a habit of asking why about everything in a chain that could go 6 or 7 levels deep before even he lost interest. He was healthy. He was attached to both of us in the way secure children are attached, without excessive anxiety, with a confidence that the people around him were reliable. I attended every parent-teacher conference, every school performance, every birthday party where I was required to stand in someone's backyard eating mediocre cake and making conversation with other parents. I coached his youth soccer team for one extremely humbling season when he was 7, and I learned that I knew considerably less about soccer than I had believed. I was his dad. I was fully, completely, in every meaningful sense his dad. There was no asterisk in my mind, no qualification, no reservation. He was mine. Dara and I had a second pregnancy scare when Caleb was 3, which turned out to be a false alarm, and we talked seriously for the first time about whether we wanted another child. We decided, after a few weeks of conversation, that we were content, that Caleb felt complete in a way that was hard to explain but genuine. We were not opposed to more, but we weren't driven toward it either. We made no dramatic decisions. We simply let the questions settle into the background of a life that had other demands. The marriage in Caleb's early years was good. I want to say that clearly, because I am aware that stories like this invite a retroactive rereading of every difficult moment as a hidden sign, and I don't want to do that falsely. We had friction. All marriages have friction. Dara worked long shifts and brought some of that weight home. I had a demanding period at work. I was in project management at a construction firm, and we had taken on a large commercial contract that consumed more of my time than I'd anticipated. We were occasionally parallel rather than connected. We were occasionally too tired to be the best version of ourselves for each other. But the foundation felt solid. I didn't see cracks. Maybe I wasn't looking.
I've thought about that.
What I can say is that when I think about Dara before everything changed, what I see is someone I was genuinely building a life with. Someone I respected, someone I was attracted to, someone I laughed with regularly enough that it felt like a feature of the marriage rather than a rare event. Someone I trusted completely. That trust is the thing I return to most often now. The specific, unqualified nature of it. I trusted Dara the way you trust something structural. Not consciously, not with active thought, but in the background of every other thing you do. The way you trust the floor to be there when you take a step. When that kind of trust breaks, it doesn't just break in the place where the crack appeared. It retroactively questions every step you took before. Caleb was 9 when the first thing happened that I cannot explain by normal means. He had broken his arm at school, a playground fall, a bad landing, nothing dramatic, the kind of injury that happens to children who move without sufficient caution, which is all children. I took him to the emergency room while Dara was finishing a shift, and while we were waiting for his x-rays, the attending physician, a young woman who was clearly efficient and thorough, reviewed his file and asked me a routine question about family medical history. She was asking specifically about a bone density condition that had shown up in his x-ray as a minor incidental finding. Nothing serious, she said, nothing requiring treatment, but something worth noting and monitoring. She asked if there was any family history of it on either side. I said I didn't know of any on my side. I said I'd have to check with my wife about hers. The doctor made a note and moved on, and we went through the rest of the visit. The cast, the instructions, the careful journey home, and I mostly forgot the question in the practical management of a 9-year-old with a new cast who was simultaneously miserable and privately pleased by the attention it was going to earn him at school. I mentioned it to Dara that evening. I said the doctor had asked about family history for a bone condition. I said I assumed she'd know more about her family's medical background than I did. She said she'd look into it. She didn't bring it up again. I assumed she had, and found nothing notable. I let it go. What I didn't let go, though I didn't consciously hold on to it either, it just sat somewhere in the back of my processing, was the expression on her face when I mentioned it. It was brief. She was good at brief. But it was the expression she made when something landed that she hadn't prepared for. I had seen that expression twice in our marriage. Once when her father's health declined faster than expected, and once when I told her my company was going to require me to travel more than we'd discussed. A particular quality of stillness, like someone who has just received new information and is instantly calculating its implications. I didn't think about why that expression would make sense in response to a question about a bone condition. I should have. I didn't. The second thing happened 8 months later. Caleb had a school project on family heritage. His teacher had assigned the class a simple family tree project, not deeply genealogical, just a 2-generation map with some basic information about where family members were from, what they did, any notable traits or characteristics that were passed down. Standard elementary school stuff. Caleb, who was by then 10 and thorough in the way of children who take school seriously, asked me a series of questions about my side of the family, which I answered. Then, he asked Dara a series of questions about hers. I wasn't in the room for most of that conversation. I was in my home office finishing something for work, but at one point I came through the living room and Caleb was asking about his grandparents on Dara's side, and I noticed that she was being uncharacteristically vague. Dara was not vague. She was the most specific person I knew, and she was giving Caleb answers that were technically correct but oddly general, places and dates without the specific texture she usually brought to stories. I didn't say anything. I made a mental note that also said nothing. That was just a small accumulation of unexplained things. The third thing was the one that cracked it open. Caleb, who had always been a curious child, had become interested in DNA and genetics in the specific way that 10-year-olds become interested in things, completely suddenly and with a focused intensity that lasts anywhere from 2 weeks to several months before the next thing captures them. He had been reading about it, watching videos about it, asking questions about inherited traits at a frequency that was impressive and occasionally exhausting. For his birthday in September, his grandmother, my mother, gave him one of those at-home ancestry DNA kits. The kind that have become ubiquitous that you see advertised everywhere, that half the population has apparently done. My mother thought it would be fun for him, given his interest in genetics. She ordered it through her tablet without fully understanding what it revealed or thinking about any implications beyond a fun activity for a curious kid. Caleb did the kit with enormous enthusiasm. He mailed the sample and checked the results website approximately 400 times over the following 3 weeks. When the results came in, he came running to find me first, which he often did, which he still does, which still means everything to me. He thrust the tablet at me and said, "Dad, look, it shows all your relatives." It matched me to Grandma and Grandpa and Uncle Derek and everyone. I looked at the screen. I saw the family matches. I saw my parents listed, my brother Derek listed, cousins and second cousins extending out in the tree. All correct. All matching the expected relationships. I started to smile and hand the tablet back. Then I looked more carefully at the relationship percentages. My mother showed as a match at a percentage consistent with a grandmother. My brother showed as a match consistent with an uncle. The numbers were all there, organized neatly in the results panel. But there was something wrong with the numbers. I know enough about genetics to know, not in technical depth but in outline, that certain relationships carry certain percentage ranges of shared DNA. Grandparents share approximately 25%. Parents share approximately 50%. The numbers for my mother and brother were in the expected ranges. I looked at where my own match should be. The results didn't have a separate entry for me because I hadn't done the kit. But I stared at the numbers for my mother and brother, and something about the way they arrayed, the specific percentages, sat wrong in a way I couldn't immediately articulate. I said casually, "This is cool, bud. Has Mom seen this yet?" He said she was at work. He bounced off to do something else with the results, already moving on to the next thing. I sat with the tablet for a while longer. Then I went to my home office, and I started reading about DNA inheritance percentages. Not to find what I was afraid of finding. I want to be honest about my own self-deception here, but because something was nagging at me, and I needed to either confirm or eliminate it. It took me about 40 minutes to find information that was clear enough. The percentages I was looking at for my mother and brother were not inconsistent with the relationship claimed, but they were at the lower end of the expected range for those relationships. Not impossibly low, within range, but at the edge of it, in a way that caught my attention once I was looking. I want to be precise about what I knew at that point, and what I didn't. What I knew was that the numbers were unusual enough to warrant further inquiry. What I didn't know was anything definitive. I hadn't done my own DNA test. I had no confirmation. I had a feeling, the kind of feeling that is not yet a thought, not yet a conclusion, but is already a fear that has started moving. I didn't say anything to Dara that evening, or the next day. I spent 4 days carrying this privately, the way I had apparently been trained to carry unexplained things, adding it to the accumulation of small moments that I had not yet arranged into a pattern. On the 5th day, I ordered my own DNA kit from the same company. I told Dara I was doing it because Caleb's interest had made me curious about my own ancestry. She said that sounded fun. She said she might do hers too. She said it in a normal voice. I watched her face for the expression I'd seen 8 months ago. I didn't see it. I waited 3 weeks for my results. They were the longest 3 weeks I can remember. When the email came saying my results were ready, I opened them on my phone in my car in the parking lot of the grocery store, because I did not want to open them at home. The results loaded. The family matches appeared. Caleb's name was not there. I need to pause here and tell you what that looked like from the inside, because I think it is easy from the outside to understand it as a clear fact and move on. From the inside, in a parking lot at 6 p.m. on a Thursday, it was not a clear fact. It was a result on a screen that said one thing while my entire body said something different. It was a number that contradicted 9 years of evidence. It was the genetic record saying one thing while every memory I had of holding him at 4:47 a.m. on a September Thursday said another thing. I sat in that parking lot for an hour. Then I drove home. I did not confront Dar that night. I told myself I needed to be certain. I needed to eliminate all other possible explanations, a testing error, a result anomaly, something that had a different answer. I spent 2 more days researching the error rates of these tests, looking for cases where tests had produced false negatives for parent-child relationships. The error rate was extremely low. Not 0, but extremely low. Low enough that when I was finally honest with myself, I knew what I was dealing with. On a Sunday afternoon when Caleb was at a friend's house, I sat down across from Dara in the living room, and I put my phone on the coffee table with the results open on the screen. I said, I need you to look at something. She looked. I watched her face. She went very still. I said very quietly, "He's not my biological son."
She didn't say no.
She didn't say that's impossible or there must be a mistake. People who are wrongly accused of things argue immediately. She went still, and the specific quality of that stillness was the last piece of information I needed. We sat in silence for approximately 30 seconds, which felt much longer. Then she said, "How long have you known?" "A week," I said. "Tell me everything." What followed was the most painful conversation I have ever participated in. It lasted 3 hours. It covered things I had not expected to hear, things that reordered the timeline of my marriage in ways I was not prepared for, and things that broke something between us that I am still not sure whether I will spend the rest of my life grieving or understanding. Dara told me that Caleb was conceived during a brief involvement with a man named Thomas, who she had worked with at the hospital, who had been part of her life for approximately 4 months before she and I got married, and briefly again in the weeks just after our wedding. A period of overlap that she described with a precision that suggested she had rehearsed the telling of it many times in her own head without ever actually telling it. Thomas had moved away from the city before she knew she was pregnant. She had realized she was pregnant approximately 6 weeks after he left, and by that point the timing was ambiguous enough. She and I had also been together during that period, as couples who are newly married are, that she had told herself it might be mine. She had told herself that for 9 years. I asked her if she had ever had doubt. She said yes. I asked her when. She said from the beginning, not constant, not consuming, but present in the background of things, surfacing at specific moments. I thought about the emergency room, the bone condition question, the expression on her face. I thought about the family tree project. I asked if she had ever tested him or attempted to find out definitively. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said that she had once when Caleb was 4, not formally, but with an at-home test that she had done quietly, alone, without telling me. She said the result had been inconclusive at the testing level she'd used, and that she had told herself that was permission to stop looking. She had made a choice. A specific, deliberate choice to stop pursuing certainty when uncertainty was more livable. I asked her about Thomas. She said she had not been in contact with him since he left. She said she didn't know if he knew. She said she had never told him about the pregnancy. I asked her if she loved me. It was a strange question to ask in that moment, but it was the question that was most directly underneath everything else, and I needed to ask it. She said yes, without hesitation, and without the kind of pause that would have qualified the answer. I believed her. I believe her still. Love does not explain the choice she made or exonerate it, but it was there and it was real, and I needed to know that. We did not reach any conclusions that night. We sat in that living room as Caleb came home from his friend's house, and we both did the work of being normal for him. Asking about his afternoon, making dinner, going through the evening routine, and the compartmentalization required for that was the most demanding thing I have ever asked of myself. He sat at the dinner table and told us about a video game with great enthusiasm, and I looked at his face, the face I had been looking at for 9 years, and felt every single thing at the same time in a way that had no resolution. After he was in bed, Dara and I sat in the kitchen in silence for a long time. She asked me what I was going to do. I said I didn't know yet. I said I needed time. She said she understood. She said she would answer any question I had, however many times I needed to ask it. She said she was sorry in a way that did not attempt to minimize what she was sorry for. I went to bed. I did not sleep. The weeks that followed were the kind that change a person's fundamental internal structure in ways that are invisible to everyone else. I went to work. I came home. I helped with homework. I attended Caleb's school concert, where he played the recorder with the particular painfully sincere effort of children who have practiced something many times and are still not quite there. I sat in that auditorium and watched him and felt the love I had always felt for him sitting alongside the most disorienting grief I had ever experienced, and there was no contradiction between them that I could resolve. They simply coexisted, fully, simultaneously, taking up the same space. I began seeing a therapist. His name was Dr. Jerome Okafor, and he was a large, quiet man who had a way of asking questions that did not allow you to answer them on the surface. He helped me identify what I was actually grieving, which was not Caleb, because nothing about my relationship with Caleb had materially changed, but a version of my marriage that I had believed in completely. The version where Dara and I had built something together on ground that was shared and clear. That version had been replaced by a more complicated one, and the grief was for the simpler version I could never fully have back. Dr. Okafor asked me, about a month into our sessions, what I wanted. Not what I thought I should want, not what was fair or logical, what I actually wanted in the most honest part of myself. I sat with that question for several days. When I came back to him with my answer, it was this. I wanted Caleb to be my son in every way that mattered. I wanted him to be protected from any version of this story that would make him feel like a question that needed answering. And I wanted to understand whether my marriage was something I could rebuild or something I needed to leave. I was not able to answer the marriage question quickly. It took months. It took therapy, both individual and eventually couples. It took conversations with Dara that were often very hard and occasionally revelatory, moments when she said things that explained, without excusing, the fear that had driven her to make the choices she made. She had been afraid. She had been 24 years old, newly married, pregnant with a child whose paternity was uncertain, and she had been afraid that the truth would end everything before it had fully begun. I understood that fear without approving of the choice it led to. Both of those things were true simultaneously, and they remained simultaneously true for a long time. The question of Thomas required addressing. Not because I needed to confront him, I had no interest in confronting him, but because Caleb had a biological father who didn't know he existed, and that fact had implications that were larger than my own feelings about it. I asked Dara to locate Thomas. She did. He was living in another state, had a family of his own, wife, 2 kids. She reached out to him by email, a carefully composed message that I read before she sent it, factual and measured. His response came 3 days later. It was brief and evident of shock. He asked if she was certain. She told him about the DNA test. He asked several questions. He eventually said that he needed time to process the information, that he wasn't sure what role, if any, he was capable of playing, and that he was grateful to know. The conversation about Caleb, specifically the question of whether and when and how to tell Caleb, was the one that consumed the most of my internal resources over the following year. I want to be honest here about my own motivation because I think it is important. I did not want to tell Caleb. I want to be very clear about the fact that this desire was not about protecting Caleb. It was about protecting myself, specifically about protecting the specific quality of relationship I had with him, the relationship in which I was simply his dad, without history or complication. I was afraid that telling him would introduce a variable into that relationship that would change it in ways I couldn't control. My therapist pointed this out to me with the particular gentleness of someone who is delivering a truth they know is uncomfortable. He said, "You've spent a lot of time identifying what Caleb needs to be protected from. Have you considered what he might need to know?" That was the question that moved me. Caleb is 11 years old. He is not a child who will stay 11. He will grow into a teenager and then into an adult, and that adult will have questions about himself. Medical questions, identity questions, the kinds of questions that become more pressing and more personally meaningful as people grow into themselves. And he would be navigating those questions on a foundation we had built with a piece missing, a piece he didn't know was missing. That wasn't protection. That was a different kind of lie. Dara and I decided together that we would tell him. We decided that we would tell him in the simplest, most honest language that was appropriate for an 11-year-old. We decided that we would tell him that I was his dad in every way that mattered, and also that biology had one different answer, and that neither of those things changed the other. We planned it carefully. We talked to Dr. Okafor about how to do it. We talked to a child therapist who specialized in exactly this kind of family complexity, a woman named Dr. Priya Shetty, who had a very practical, matter-of-fact approach that I found enormously reassuring. We told him on a Saturday morning in April. We sat in the living room, the same room where I had first seen Dara's results, and we told him together, in the language we'd prepared, with Dr. Shetty's guidance in the back of our minds. Caleb was quiet for a while. That quietness scared me in a way I am still not entirely over. Then he said, "So, Dad's still my dad?" I said, "Yes, I'm still your dad. That part doesn't change." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "Okay. And then, is the guitar teacher coming today?" He has had more questions since then. Some have been simple, some have been complicated, some have surfaced at unexpected moments. In the car, at bedtime, while we're watching television. We answer all of them. Dr. Shetty says he's processing it in a healthy way, in pieces, at his own pace. She says the most important thing is that he knows the door is always open. We keep the door open. Thomas has been in limited contact. Caleb knows he exists, knows his name, knows the basics of the situation. Whether he will want any kind of relationship with Thomas, at some point, is a question that belongs entirely to Caleb. We have said so explicitly. We will support whatever he decides. Dara and I are still married. I want to tell you that with honesty about what that means, because I know that some people reading this will have opinions about it. We are not the same marriage we were before. We are a different marriage, one that was rebuilt after something broke, which means it has different qualities than the original. There are things between us that are better now. A transparency that was not there before, an honesty that was forced into the relationship by necessity and stayed because it was useful. There are also things that are more fragile. A trust that has to be actively maintained rather than passively assumed. Conversations that sometimes circle back to things we thought we'd resolved. I do not pretend that what Dara did was okay. She kept something from me for 9 years that I had a fundamental right to know. The decision she made at 24 was understandable in human terms. Fear is understandable, but it was still a decision that affected my life enormously without my consent. I have grieved that. I am still, sometimes, angry about it. I think I will be angry about it for a while longer, and that the anger will eventually settle into something more like an accepted scar than an open wound. What I know in the part of myself that does not waver, is that Caleb is my son. Not as a consolation or a compromise or a close enough. As a full, complete, absolute fact. He is my son because I held him at 4:47 in the morning and fell in love with him on the spot. Because I coached his terrible soccer team. Because I sat in an auditorium and watched him play the recorder painfully and felt proud anyway. Because I sat in a living room and told him the truth and watched him process it and come out the other side still fundamentally himself. Biology is one answer to the question of parenthood. But it is one answer among several, and it is not always the largest one. I am writing this at nearly midnight. I can no longer hear the guitar from the other room because Caleb has gone to bed, and the house has the particular quiet of a home where people are asleep. In a few minutes I'll close this and go to sleep myself in my bed next to my wife, in the life I am continuing to choose and continuing to build. I don't know if there's a lesson in this that's clean enough to hand to someone. I don't think human experience works that way. What I know is that the family I have is real. The love in it is real. The damage in it is real too, and we are living with all of it together, in the specific way that people do when they have decided that imperfect, difficult, honest truth is better than perfect, comfortable silence. If you've been through something like this, the discovery, the grief, the question of what to do with a life that has been rearranged without your permission, I'd want to hear from you. Not for advice. Just because these things are heavy to carry alone, and sometimes the only thing that helps is knowing that other people have found ways to carry them too.